If you're watching the channel for the first time, I will encourage you to start watching our my prediction. Not prediction. What do you call it? Upsets prediction. Largely because if you look at that video, I essentially predicted a lot of how the fight would essentially play out. Even if I didn't get all of them correct, I was able to warn whoever was watching of the potential close fights. I was able to predict some of the fights. It was a tricky fight night card. Um, so yeah, I'm not particularly excited about all my results, but I think I did pretty decently, um, considering everything. As compared to other channels, I think I did really well. And I think my subscribers did significantly better. Okay, not significantly. I mean, the difference is one, but it's nonetheless really positive. So let me get to actually um, reaction, basically. But I would like to reiterate the fact that if you watch my upsets prediction, it's almost like I was watching the fights, like the way I broke them down. So in future, watch them. That's my advice. You don't have to take my picks, but the information that I give out is almost accurate. Anyway, let's get to the fight. Um, the opener: Vanessa Dumont-Pulis versus Emily Ducode. In my prediction, specifically the upset predictions, I actually highlighted the fact that I wasn't really confident about my pick, largely because I don't feel like both of them were talented in any way, shape, or form, especially because it's in the women's division. So anything can potentially happen in that fight. Um, in my analysis, I wanted to pick Vanessa, but I wasn't too sure. So yeah, this is the first fight that I got wrong on this particular card. But I did predict that this is going to be a 50-50 fight. So whoever was watching, I told them to. The best thing is to avoid betting or doing anything regarding this particular fight. It wasn't a particularly entertaining fight. Maybe for some people it was, but for me it wasn't that entertaining. Um, so yeah, my subscribers and I officially picked Emily Ducode. We were wrong on that one. On to the next one. We didn't have a good start, but we recovered up the card. Alatang Haley versus Clayton Rodriguez. Even this one, I felt like Clayton Rodriguez would be able to get the win. Um, However, I think the biggest problem was his takedown defense, and I did say this in my upsets predictions that I felt like Clayton Rodriguez would have the ability to actually win this fight. Just that his takedown defense, a lot of Brazilians, man, like it seems like whenever a Brazilian is fighting anyone who has decent grappling, you shouldn't necessarily bet on them, except for a few. I mean, even Joe Anderson Brito, he's one of the most talented fighters in the UFC, but he gets taken down, and it really sucks. But nonetheless, I did highlight the fact that the only flaw in Clinton Rodriguez's game would be his takedown defense, which is horrible, and he didn't even stop. He couldn't even stop one takedown. That was bad. But nonetheless, this is the fight. I got this fight wrong, and my subscribers also got this fight wrong. We picked Clayton Rodriguez. Sucks. This one hurt my feelings. Ariane Kalanosi versus Piera Rodriguez. Um, I feel like Herb Dean did a horrible job here in this particular fight because he cannot justify disqualifying and giving a disqualification win to someone who was already compromised. If you removed the fact that Ariane was hurt is a massive thing. The two things that Herb Dean should have done is either number one, take away a point, or number two, call it a no contest. And I'm not saying that I'm also for the idea of actually discouraging fouls. I don't have a problem with someone being disqualified, but in that situation, it's a little bit tricky because it doesn't feel like she was intentionally trying to headbutt, even though she did it twice. I know, but it just feels like it was just excitement and adrenaline, and she was just trying to pin her down, and she unfortunately used her head to do so. And the fact she was knocked down and she was about to get finished. I don't know why Herb Dean didn't just take a point, or at the very least ended in a what do you call it? Ended in a no contest. I don't understand the logic behind saying, well, I'm going to give this person who was clearly losing. If the fight was equally matched, like if it was 50-50, then I would understand it. Like Ariane was losing that fight. Like she was losing the fight, and I'm not like I was saying. I'm not saying that um, that made it fine, but I don't feel like the headbutts were that significant for Herb Dean to feel like he needs to give Ariane a disqualification win. And even Ariane, like she wasn't necessarily like she sat down. It was frustrating to watch that fight because it's hard to defend. It's hard to defend Piera Rodriguez because she did commit a foul, but at the same time she was winning that fight, man, and it really sucks that Herb Dean and the hypocrisy in this particular fight that's the one thing that irritates me is the fact that in the main event Edson Barboza was busy grabbing the fence and Herb Dean was also refereeing that particular fight and he didn't even do anything. Edson Barboza was busy grabbing the fence throughout the fight and he was busy giving him warnings, warning after warning, warning after warning, and nothing ever really happened. But in this particular fight, it took only two headbutts that I don't feel like were that significant. They might have looked intentional, but I don't feel like they altered the fight because she was already hurt, But it is what it is. She lost. I mean, at the end of the day, despite my arguments and despite my view on this particular topic, she did commit a foul, and it's hard to defend that, But it really sucks to see that she was actually winning that fight, and I feel like she did that because of excitement. Let me not let me not complain too much about this. My subscribers and I went with Piera Rodriguez, and I don't regret that decision. I feel like I was right. Unfortunately, it ended how it ended. On to the next one: Abbas Magomedov versus Wally Alvarez. I'm proud of Abbas Magomedov, man, because when he came into the UFC, I believed that he had, and even in my predictions, I actually highlighted the fact that people are judging this guy based on his performance against the former champion, Sean Strickland, and Caio Borralho, who couldn't even finish him. And I actually did highlight this that it I didn't understand why people were so hard on this guy because those were his two or one. He had three fights, I think, in the UFC. He won his first fight, and then he lost to Strickland, and then he lost to Caio Borralho, which are not bad losses. I mean, Caio Borralho has not lost yet in the UFC, and he just beat a veteran in Paul Craig. Sean Strickland, I don't even have to make a case for Sean Strickland. He was the former champion, and he beat Israel Adesanya, who is arguably one of the best strikers in the UFC. So it wasn't necessarily like a bad loss. I honestly don't understand why people were bagging on this guy. His grappling looked incredible. Um, I actually he still looked gassed. I feel like his cardio needs a little bit of work. But apart from that, I feel like he's good, very good technically, especially on the ground. I don't know why he wasn't even trying to use this. Oh, no, but considering now, I realize that maybe two of his previous opponents were good on the ground, so probably that's why he might have avoided going to the ground with them. But nonetheless, that was an incredible performance. I don't know. I know that generally wrestling is a little bit more more tiring than striking. So let's hope that his cardio has improved. But in the fight with Caio Borralho, he looked improved. His cardio looked improved. But yeah, my subscribers and I went with Abbas Magomedov, and I'm really happy for this guy. I think he's an exciting prospect in this particular division. On to the next one. Um, is it Tom Nolan? No, no, it's not. It's not Tom Nolan. Sorry, I'm just looking at the fight. Okay, Melissa Gatto versus Tamires Vidal. Melissa Gatto, I thought this would be a little bit closer than it was. Melissa Gatto actually dominated this fight, and I honestly thought that it would be a little bit closer. I thought it would be similar to the fight in the opening fight between Vanessa and what do you call it, Emily Ducote. Um, but Melissa Gatto actually came through and she looked sensational. My subscribers and I went with Melissa Gatto. On to the next one. Omar Sai versus Utuko Tokos. This guy, this guy should like. I feel like maybe this loss will teach him a lesson. Like he was busy screaming in a fight, saying he's breathing heavier than me. He's breathing heavier than me. But you are losing, my dude. Like you're losing the fight. He might be breathing heavier than you, but like it doesn't change the fact that he finished you. Like, but what does that mean? It was so stupid. Like I hate people who do stupid things like that. Like you are close to being submitted, and all you're concentrating on is the fact that your opponent is breathing heavier than you. Like, what does that mean? Because at the end of the day, now he lost. Anyway, Omar Sy, I don't know. He looks good, man. It's hard to determine in order to say how far he can go. I'd like to see him tested against better opponents. Hopefully, he can improve on his striking. I think him and Cyril Gahn would benefit from working with each other. I think Cyril Gahn would benefit largely from Omar Sy because I get they are from the same region. I think they are both from France. So I think both of them, if they work together, they could complete each other's skill set. You know, Sorogan could be a little bit better in terms of grappling, and Omar Sy could be a little bit better in terms of striking, and I think also cardio. I don't like Sorogan because I feel like he ducks a lot of fights, but I can't dispute the fact that he's really good at what he does. You know, anyway, my subscribers and I picked Omar Sy, and he looked good. I just feel like he might have a problem if he goes up the rankings. On to the next one, Tom Nolan versus Victor Martinez. Um, my subscribers and I picked Tom Nolan. I was worried for a moment there. Um, I don't know, man. Isn't he too tall for? But there are people like Jalen Turner, but I feel like he's too tall for that division. Maybe he should move up. Even Jalen Turner, I feel like Jalen Turner lost his previous fight. He loses largely because he's cutting too much to make his division. So I feel like this guy is a little bit too tall. But anyway, my subscribers and I went with Tom Nolan. We were right on that. I don't know how far he can go because it seems like he's easily dropped. Anyway, on to the next one, Angela Hill versus Luana Pinheiro. This was incredible to watch. And in my predictions, I did actually say that there are two women that are able to perform extremely well despite being over 35. And those people are Holly Holm and Angela Hill. And on this one, it's only my subscribers that got it correct because I felt like Luana Pinheiro would find a way to actually get this done. And instead, Angela Hill looked sensational in that particular fight. Um, I hope he gets. I hope she gets the fight against Jessica Andrade. Because I think Angela Hill probably would be, if this version of Angela Hill shows up, she'll probably be able to beat Jessica Andrade, and hopefully maybe she can work her way to at least getting a title shot, because she's been in the UFC for so long, and I feel like she deserves it. My subscribers went with Angela Hill. I went with Luana Pinheiro. That sucks. Anyway, on to the next one. Adrian Yanez versus Vinicio Salvador. This was one of my locks. I did say that Adrian Yanez would win this one. There was absolutely no way Vinicius would win this particular fight, and I was correct. He got a finish. Um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how he performs. I still think he's good, but he needed to look a little bit more dominant in that fight. I mean, he got a finish, but he didn't. Or maybe it's because Vinicius is good. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm being too hard on Adrian Yanez, but nonetheless, I did predict that Adrian would win this one. He was one of my locks. My subscribers also picked Adrian. On to the next one: Temba Gorimbo versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Um, Temba is a complete fighter, and I just don't know how his mental state is. I understand and I appreciate the fact that he has compassion and he has feelings, but it feels like his performances or his like he feels too much. Maybe that might be a good thing. That might be a motivator. That might be the reason he becomes a little more successful than his teammate Kobe Covington, who's a bum, in my opinion. I don't know if they're teammates or not, but nonetheless, yeah. Um, I think it just shows that he's complete. It wasn't particularly impressive. It was dominant, but it wasn't impressive because I feel like the positions that he was getting in that particular fight, he could have found a way to actually finish. But still a dominant fight. There were 10-8 rounds in there, so pretty dominant performance. My subscribers and I went with Temba Gorimbo. On to the next one. Chaos Williams versus Carlston Harris. I always continuously underestimate Chaos. My subscribers picked Chaos and I picked Carlston Harris. Um, Chaos looked good. I honestly don't know why Carlston Harris didn't try to just grapple immediately. For whatever reason, he tried to strike with that guy. I don't know why, but you know what? He paid for it. Um, Congrats to my subscribers. They got this one right. I got this one wrong. On to the main event: Lerone Murphy versus Edson Barboza. I went with Lerone Murphy. My subscribers went with Edson Barboza. And Lerone Murphy looked sensational in that particular fight. Last year, December, I made a top 12. Was it a top 12 of the prospects that I felt would become a problem in their respective divisions? Lerone Murphy was one of them, and I'm glad to see that he's living up to that potential. Um, the list is on my channel somewhere. Oh, it's in the playlist. Go to the playlist section. I made a list of the prospects that I felt like were going to be a problem. And so far, all of them have performed exceedingly well, except who's the heavyweight dude? I forgot his name. He's the only prospect that I felt like had potential to excel, and he didn't excel. But other than that, man, people like Joanderson Brito, Diego Lopez, obviously Bo Nickel. Who's this guy who's fighting in the main event? I forgot him. He's going to be fighting in the upcoming main event. Is it Taturo Taira? I think it's Taturo Taira. So there are some really decent prospects there that I predicted would perform really well, and they are so far the majority of them are performing well. Leron Murphy surprised me. I thought that fight would be a little bit closer than it was. Leron Murphy looked like the veteran in that particular fight. Like he beat Edson Barboza, which is not an easy feat. People will argue, "Wow, Edson Barboza is older now." I don't think that's the case, man. He was busy knocking out people like Billy Quarantillo. He was beating people like what Sadiq Yusuf. So it clearly shows that he was still elite. Because he was beating ranked contenders. He wasn't just beating random people. He was beating people in the top 15. So that shows how good he was. And even in this fight, he looked sensational. Just that the biggest problem, I don't know. I felt like Lerone Murphy was a little bit better. I'm excited to see how he performs. His striking looks really good, but in a division with Max Holloway and Ilya Tuporia, he's at lightweight. He's at featherweight, right? I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But in a division with Max Holloway and Ilya Tuporia, I mean, Alexander Volkanovski is older now, so I don't think he's going to be that much of an. I don't think he's going to get that belt back, especially the longer he takes. He has to fight again this year, and if he doesn't get the belt back this year, then it's over for him. The best thing to do would be to retire because he's going to now lose it to a couple because the featherweight division has a lot of dangerous fighters and I wouldn't like to see. I think the best way to retire is how Daniel Cormier did it. After losing your rematch in a title fight, retire, and your legacy will be intact forever. But nonetheless, yeah, we'll see how he performs. But comparing Leron Murphy to Ilya Tuporia, but let me not say that because normally when fighters face higher competition, especially prospects, they tend to improve while they are trying to game plan for their opponent. In any case, my predictions for UFC 302 are out on the shorts section. I'm going to be doing lives. I'm still deciding if I should do individual breakdowns for every single fight leading up to the main event. Um, um, but we'll talk. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Like we'll talk. I appreciate all of you. Deuces. Until next time.